By 1941, Hitler had taken control of most of Europe, with only Britain standing between him and total victory. But he made some terrible mistakes that ultimately cost him the war and his life. His final mistake was so dumb, you won't believe he really did it. After crushing most of his enemies in Western Europe, many saw Hitler as unstoppable. However, in 1941, Hitler ordered the invasion of the Soviet Union, driven by his hatred of the Slavic people. Hitler betrayed Stalin and went against their peace agreement, ordering the biggest invasion in human history. At first, the Germans made massive gains, pushing deep into the Soviet Union, but Hitler underestimated the Soviet Union's defense. Unlike in France, the Soviet Union's massive size meant that he was unable to defeat them before the Russian winter hit. As the snow started to fall, the German army stalled near Moscow in the cold. Despite lacking the technological advantage the Germans had, the Soviet Union also had more than double the German population, meaning that it could sustain heavy losses for longer. Ultimately, it was Hitler's invasion of the Soviet Union and his failure to knock them out before the winter began that may have guaranteed his defeat. After he invaded Poland in 1939, both France and Britain declared war on Germany. Despite being the underdog, German forces pulled off a shock victory, knocking France out of the war with a rapid assault into the country. With the French and British armies cornered at Dunkirk, Hitler had an opportunity to wipe out the remaining enemy forces who found themselves trapped and defenseless. But Hitler instead ordered his armies to halt, granting the French and British a chance to escape. Over the next 10 days, the British and French were attacked at Dunkirk by only the German Luftwaffe, allowing them to pull off one of the most daring naval evacuations in history. Around 340,000 troops escaped to Britain, many of which would return on D-Day to get their revenge on Hitler. If their forces had been wiped out on the beaches of Dunkirk, with no allies left in the fight, the British might have been forced to sue for peace, winning Hitler the war. Possibly Hitler's greatest mistake was his choice of allies. Mussolini's Italy was a constant liability for Hitler's Germany. After declaring war on the Allies in 1940, Italy achieved some success before a disastrous invasion of Greece. Hitler was forced to come to Italy's aid, sending troops that were needed elsewhere to bail out the Italians. Nazi Germany's second ally were the Japanese, who were much more successful militarily compared to their Italian allies. However, the Japanese made a terrible mistake that would ultimately ensure German defeat. By 1941, things were still going Hitler's way. Britain was left standing alone, and it seemed that the USA were going to stay out of the war in Europe this time. In 1941, the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor in Hawaii, forcing the Americans to join the war. Many believe that the Japanese plan to cripple the Americans not only failed, but guaranteed an Allied victory. The US immediately entered the war and would ultimately prove too powerful for the Japanese in the Pacific. Japan's failure to destroy American aircraft carriers at Pearl Harbor would prove disastrous at the Battle of Midway. Ultimately, America's military might would be instrumental in defeating both Germany and Japan. Allying with the Japanese may have therefore guaranteed Hitler's eventual defeat. Thanks for watching.